Good morning, everyone. This is Julie McDonald with Microcom Technologies, and I'd like to thank all of you for attending today's webinar with Netgear. Today's host is Jordan Cooper, and he is their Commercial Territory Account Manager, and he will be presenting today. If anyone has any questions, please submit them in the question box, and Jordan will answer them at the end of today's presentation. Jordan, thank you so much for being with us today. I am finished for now, so you can go ahead and take it on over.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Julie. My name is Jordan Cooper, and like she said, I am the account manager over California and Texas. So Microcom is my partner. Right off the bat, know that I am in sales. While I am working to become an engineer, I am in no means fully certified. So I know enough just to be dangerous and how to break things, but I may not have all the technical answers, so bear with me on that. Today we are going to be talking about riding the wireless wave. I am doing this presentation out of my home, as I'm sure most of you guys are watching this presentation from home. I hope everyone watching this video is safe and their family and friends are safe and doing well. So let's get right into it. Today's agenda that we're going to talk about on the wireless side of things, we're going to talk a little bit about our company facts and about Netgear. We'll talk about what makes Netgear different. We will talk about our wireless history. We'll talk about some extenders. Then we'll go into some access points or APs that can be managed via controllers or ensemble mode. Some access points that can be managed with our cloud. Our new outdoor bridge. And then we will talk about the Wi-Fi 6 or the wireless AX. And then we'll open it up, just like Julie said, to some questions at the end. So diving right into it, some company facts about Netgear. Netgear did $1.4 billion in revenue in 2018 with a little over 1,000 employees. Netgear runs and achieves this as we are very agile and lean in the marketplace. We do have offices in 25 countries with our headquarters in Silicon Valley in California. We're also a publicly traded company on the NASDAQ at Netgear. Now, the Netgear difference straight off the bat for SMBs, or the small to medium businesses, the three things that Netgear strives to always achieve in our products, whether it be wireless or wired switches or storage, or even just basic home routers, the three things we want people to realize is that we are reliable. Most of our products come with a lifetime limited warranty, and if not, it generally would come with either 3 or 5 year warranty. We do also offer our next business day replacement. And as you can see, we have been providing these solutions since 1996 for the past 24 years. So we've been in business for quite some time. We obviously must be doing something right. We like to be also affordable. We are a fraction of the cost of traditional big IT vendors. We also like to be able to grow as your business grows and have the ability to scale with it. And we also like to have ways and management techniques and abilities to reduce operating expenses, which will overall improve efficiency. And then finally, Netgear is proud to always be easy to use. For easy installation, we don't require any training or IT staff or any certifications to know how our products work and how to get them working, and how to manage them, really importantly, too. That's the biggest takeaways of Netgear. So when you think Netgear in the business realm, this at the basis is what makes Netgear different compared to everybody else. Going on to the next one, we'll talk a little bit about our wireless history. And this will go, there we are. This may show a little bit of my age a little bit, but some of you will remember these times, these good old times. Now, this isn't a full set complete of the history. Obviously, there's wireless A and C and things like that, but these are pretty much the most prevalent and the ones that kind of became a standard and the norm for a certain period of time. But we had wireless B at 11 megabytes per second. Some of us still, myself included, may feel like I'm still in that era. Sometimes my Wi-Fi is just completely slow and it's ridiculous, but rest assured I am not. Then we went to wireless G. It was a big bump at 54. Wireless N then came out, and we were in wireless N everyone probably remembers very well because we were in wireless N for quite a long time. We realized that this is where you could have multiple bands rather than just one. So this is where the dual band came out. You could have 150 megs up to 600 megabytes per second with a dual band. And we stuck there for quite some time. Then we transitioned to wireless AC, which is technically where we are at right now. We may be at a bit of the tail end of it, but we are still in wireless AC. This is where the 300 megabytes on the 2.4 and 867 megabytes on the 5 network, and we introduced a 4x4 radios and bands and things like that. So we are moving up in the world and getting faster as more and more data is being demanded. Now, wireless AX is the next one. We'll, as you saw in our agenda, we will address that towards the end since we are on the beginning stages of that. And that's part of the presentation we'll talk about is riding this wireless wave of when to jump off. Hopefully no one is on BG or N. I know still there might be some people who might still be using N, but rest assured things are getting faster, and as businesses demand more, we need to keep up with it. So let's talk about the next thing we have are some extenders. So extenders are great, but they also have their drawbacks. And the drawbacks that I think the biggest drawbacks that I can see and we all face is it creates a different network when you throw in an extender. So you'll have two complete separate networks, and you'll be only able to join that new network if you lose the signal 100% to the router or manually disconnect. So what that simply put, what that entails is if you're right here, you may be right next to your extender, but your phone may not or your device may not connect to the extender because you're still in the router's signal, and the router will hang on as much for as long as possible. It does not want to lose that signal even if it means you have one bar. Whereas if you're right here, you might say, well, I'm right next to it. Why aren't I getting good coverage? It's because you either have to tell your device, hey, disconnect from my router and connect to the extender, or you move out of range of the router. So the router has no choice but to drop you and the extender can pick up. Either way, the router and the extender, they don't communicate with each other, which seems can be problematic. Especially if you have, like myself, I have software and I have a system that I use that I have to maintain a constant internet connection. And if I have a hiccup for just a second, it will have to refresh and redo everything, which can be quite rather frustrating when my internet provider has a little bit of a blip and an outage for just a short period of time. I lose everything. So they don't communicate, and that can somewhat be frustrating. So as technology kind of progressed, and as things wanted, more and more businesses needed them to communicate, the next best thing was the controller. This is where you would get access points and you would get a controller. There are some good things still to this day about getting a physical controller. It comes with kind of some pros and cons. So let's talk about the good things to use. Anytime that I would recommend a controller to one of my partners and one of my resellers, or even to an end user, I would say it's a good idea to use a controller if you're needing an Active Directory. If you have about 50 or need more than 50 access points, if you have just this massive building that needs a lot of access points on the network, then a controller might be in the best interest. And then also, if the network requires load balancing, if you don't know what load balancing is, simply it communicates your access point. If it gets overloaded with too many people connecting and it's using, it's throwing everything it has, but it's still not able to keep up with the bandwidth demand, it will take the nearest access point and offload some of the data and the streaming off to the next nearest access point. Now, right off the bat, that sounds like something everybody might need. But when you really think about it, Netgear has products that can do up to 600 users. So when is there going to be a time in the small to medium business realm that will have more than 600 users connected in a single room with a single access point? Doesn't happen very often, but there are chances that it might, so we have a solution for it if it does. The limitations or the drawbacks to a controller is there's only 3 different access points. We have a 2x2, a 3x3, and a 4x4, and that's that. There are no more being made, there are no more being developed, and while one may speculate, I speculate, and this is nothing but hearsay from myself, but I could see Netgear possibly sometime in the future making these products end of life, just because as things move to the cloud, that's more of a higher demand, and the controller is less of a demand. But we'll see how long. If we may hold on to it for another 10 years, we may hold on to it for another year. We'll see. The other thing, the drawback is this, since this is a physical controller, it takes up more space in a rack. Sometimes racks are limited in space, and having to have another physical item in there just increases the things inside. As well, it also gives a possible point of failure for anybody who may look at redundancy or may look at HA or high availability. The next thing is this can be a little bit costly. We have 3 different wireless controllers. They all range in price, but they can be a little bit more costly just for the controller itself, and they also still require to purchase licenses. So depending on how many access points you need, you have to buy the licenses, the appropriate amount of licenses. Another maybe drawback that I could see too is if you are doing some redundancy and you want to have some additional access points ready to go, you still have to have licenses for those access points that, even though they may not being utilized at the moment, they have to have some sort of license still on them. So take that and do what you will with that. The next big thing that came out that what we're really focusing on is our cloud. I did a presentation a couple months ago back in March with Netgear's cloud. It's called Insight. If you haven't had a chance to watch that presentation or attend that presentation, or if you would like to know more about that, you can absolutely go to Microcom's YouTube site and find the Netgear one and watch the video. Of course, it's always all over the place on Netgear. If you go to Netgear's homepage, you're going to see something about Insight, because this is the future of Netgear, and I think a lot of companies as well, because there's so many benefits and things that you could do. I could list, and as I made the whole presentation last time just simply on Insight, and I could do that, so I had to really cut it down for this presentation. Excuse me. But simply put, you can have this whole network built on the cloud. You can expand your Wi-Fi without cables, and what's really cool is Netgear has a proprietary and patented technology where we actually have a tri-band or a third network for the backhaul. So what does this mean? Well, traditionally, companies out there that offer mesh or that they communicate with each other, typically what ends up happening is if you're on your 5 gigahertz radio, your 5 on the AC is going to be 867 megabytes per second. That's if you're connected to the router. When you're connected to an access point, that access point has to keep traffic open for incoming and outgoing. So it takes the speed on that 5 network and cuts it in half to anticipate speed and traffic going in. So no longer are you getting the 867. And it does the same thing for the 2.4. So it really starts limiting your speed the farther and the more hops you do, the more access points you add, and the farther away from you are from that router, which can be quite frustrating, especially in a business sense. People who are in one side of the office is going to be really, really slow. So Netgear saw this and as a challenge, and so we created a third band, and that's why what you might see sometimes, you might see a tri-band. That means it has a third network that you may or may not be able to see. It's on the 5 gigahertz network, and it uses that as a wireless backbone. And as you can see kind of by this image, these actually have a 3 gigabyte throughput, but of course like 3.4, but of course you split half for speed. So it actually turns out to be about 1.7 gigabytes per second wirelessly. So that's right, ladies and gentlemen. The cool thing is we've reached the day and age, with Netgear at least, that you are faster wireless than running wired when it comes time to 1 gig. And Wi-Fi 6 is going to be looking at that as being a big game changer as well. So we have three. We actually have these three right here are most popular. We have four out right now with more coming down the pipe. We actually have a new one that came out that is a perfect transition to our next one, and our next segue is our wireless air bridge. Now I could talk days and days about this and make you want to blow your brains out, but this is an awesome outdoor air bridge. The keys to using this and what's cool for this is a point-to-point or a point-to-multi-point, wireless bridge for long distance outdoor Wi-Fi range up to 9,000 square feet. So as we all know, the limitations with running RJ45 or Cat6, Cat cabling is copper, and that's 300 feet or 100 meters. If you're needing to run or get Wi-Fi signal or get a network out farther than that, your only option is to really run fiber, which can be very, very, very costly. So this is to replace those, and so you don't have to run a cable, a fiber cable farther than that. You can throw out this wireless air bridge. Now, while this air bridge goes up to 9,000 feet, which is, think a mile is 5,280, somewhere around there. So that's like almost 2 miles. That's, when you're pushing something to that limit, don't expect full throughput and full capacity, obviously. Its optimum performance is this next section here. The air bridge can deliver 500 megabytes at 500 feet distance. That's a line of support, and of course it supports the wireless AC technology. So that's half a gig at 500 feet, which is pretty amazing when you really think about it, and that's wirelessly. It also enables point-to-multi-point network expansion. So you can go from, like this image shows here, the master site to one or more satellites in the distance. Of course, when you do that, expect to cut your throughput, in half, and don't expect the 500 megabytes if you have two. A thing to note there is, if you can see, this is kind of a cone type shaped. That's because this is a 60-degree cone that it shoots out this wireless signal. So it is not omnidirectional. That's how it can go the distance. There are some competitors out there who may offer farther distances or, stronger, faster speeds, but that's because they have a more narrow cone. It's more concentrated, right? So we wanted to make it so take into account a little bit of both. Widen the cone so you have some margin and things to move, but also have good, strong signal and distance. Now, this also, not only does this act as an air bridge, a point-to-point, this will also act as an access point, an outdoor access point. But to the drawback, again, it's not omnidirectional access point. It is that it's 60 degrees. So if you're standing outside of this 60 degree, if you're standing behind it, you will not be connected. It will not see and it will not register the wireless Wi-Fi signal. So you can put this in between, maybe you're outside and you have brick walls in between in a corner somewhere. You could throw that bad boy in and shoot that signal and still get some great signal across. But this is weather resistant and all those good stuff. I think it's like IP68 rating and things like that. So it's super awesome. I encourage you guys to check it out. It's super affordable. I want to say it's sub $200. So it's really awesome. And if you get a chance to try it out, we'd love to hear your feedback of how it works. All right. Moving on to the next Wi-Fi 6 or wireless AX. We don't, here at Netgear, we don't like to call it AX because that looks like AX is an X and something you chop down a tree with, not something you rely on your Wi-Fi with. So when you hear Netgear referring to wireless AX, it'll always be as Wi-Fi 6. So that's how I will always refer to it as well. The question is it time? And I get asked this a lot by my partners, and a lot of my end users, and I've been on a lot of calls with our engineers, and we discuss this all the time of, hey, I need to put in some new access points. Should I get Wi-Fi 6 access points? And, Netgear, no, right off the bat, Netgear only has home products gaming routers that are Wi-Fi 6. Currently, at this time, we do not have any business class Wi-Fi 6 routers available. In time, they are coming down, but there's a reason to it, and that's all part of this timing that we're going to talk about here. But I wanted to paint this picture and make sure that everyone understands what it truly means, and will you see a big performance increase when you do get Wi-Fi 6 access points and put that in your network? Because it all depends. And this is I paint this picture, and so I just created this picture to visually see as we all probably, most of us probably know, and if we don't, we may not fully realize that this is the case. But when you get when you have a local network and you get a Wi-Fi 6 access points or routers or things like that, that's like increasing your speed limit on your roads on this little island here. Your island's your local network. You may say, hey, the speed limit's 1,000 miles an hour, and that's great. That's awesome that you're capable of achieving that speed and they're allowed to go to that fast. However, if anybody needs to access the internet, they need to leave your local network and what we could refer to the wide area network, the WAN, and that's to access all things, everything else on the internet, of course, your Netflix and everything you'd access on the internet. Your internet provider can only come in at a certain speed. Right now, to my knowledge, 1 gig is kind of the high right now, and maybe some areas may offer more, but I've only heard in my area, in my state of Utah, 1 gig is really the most that businesses can get. And as we know, Wi-Fi 6, or if we don't know, is capable of almost 5 gigs. I think it's about 4.6 with on the 5 network using some bands. So you have fast over here, but no matter what, if you're accessing the internet, if you're accessing anything on the WAN side, you are only going to be as fast as this road right here, as fast as the internet service provider comes in. And I asked my engineers the question. I said, what was the point of coming out with a Wi-Fi 6 home router, if gaming router, if they still have to access the internet, because that's what gamers do. They access a server outside of their home. And simply put, there was a want in the networking range and in the gaming world. This new technology was coming out. There may not necessarily been a need for it, but there was a want for it. And Netgear, owning 70% of the world's home router share, said, hey, if there's a want for it and if people want it, we'll deliver it to them. So we did. That's why we came out with them. Now, they may not really see an increase in speed or things like that, but it's there and they can buy it. Now, I can't say that they would never see a performance boost, because there's obviously other circumstances that run into it. How much traffic is at that home network? Is there a lot of other gamers? Is there a lot of other devices utilizing? Because with Wi-Fi 6, you also get more lanes, more bands, and more devices can travel through that with less of a hindrance. And so they may see it, but oftentimes they may not. So when it comes time to the business side of things, that's where I think it'll really start to be beneficial on the business side, because businesses oftentimes have a server or have a NAS that they access, that multiple computers or people access locally without having to leave their local network. And in that case, okay, hey, that makes a little bit more sense then. So if you can just stay in this area, it might make sense to upgrade to the Wi-Fi 6. But there's also one more big factor into it that I talk to as well. You may set the speed limit to 1,000 miles an hour. You may set to have this totally fast network ready to go and ready to be used. However, there are vehicles on the road, and the vehicles are being your phone, your tablet, laptop, desktop, TVs, and anything that has a Wi-Fi card or a Wi-Fi NIC built into it, and they can only go so fast as well. And that's a really important thing to consider, is your cars or these devices, these end devices, may not have the capability of speaking AX, be able to communicate at speeds that fast. And that's where we're kind of at right now. Technology is catching up to where, I would put money that most of the devices that you're on right now, your laptops and desktops and cell phones, don't have a Wi-Fi 6 card built in. Now some do, and that's kind of where we're at right now. Is that transition phase of new things that are coming out will have the Wi-Fi 6, and no doubt that Wi-Fi 6 cards are going to be the new standard. AC, I am certain, will go away, unlike AB. If anybody knows about that, we thought after AC, or no, it was AD. I'm sorry, if AD or AB, that was supposed to kind of catch on with 60 hertz. Instead of 2.4 and 5, there was a 60, but never really caught on. But we're certain that Wi-Fi 6 is going to catch on, and I believe it's going to be a matter of time that your devices are going to be more commonly upgraded and come standard with a Wi-Fi 6 card. So as I talked to my partners and I talked to my end users, I was just having a conversation last week with one of my partners and their end user, and they were wanting to upgrade and get Wi-Fi 6 everything. And I said, well, here's some things to factor in. And he advised me that they supply their office with their laptops and desktops. And I said, are you guys going to be looking to replace that at any time soon? Is that going to be in the build? He goes, nope, we just got those last year. Those are going to be around for the next 5 years or so. And I said, okay, great. Do you know if those have an AC card, or if they have the Wi-Fi 6? And he goes, yeah, those have the AC. And so I said, okay, then it doesn't make sense then, if you're not looking to replace those at that time, to really look at paying more for something you can't utilize. And that's this, you're looking at the wave and saying, when do I ride the wave? When do I hop on this Wi-Fi 6? If you hop on it now, maybe you need it. Maybe you do need it just because of the bandwidth in the traffic that's going across. But if you're looking for, hey, I just want to see an increase in speeds and I'm not maxing out my AC, you won't see Wi-Fi 6, a big increase with Wi-Fi 6. What will end up happening is you'll pay pretty costly for it because it's new and it's something you won't be able to really utilize for the next little while. And vice versa, if you miss the wave, if the wave already comes through and passes, the price will be lower, but your businesses will be a little bit behind. Things will, your business will be a little bit hindered because of the network ability and the demand that's going to be happening. So it's all about timing. So I asked this question, and when will you know the right time to ride this wireless wave and jump on the wave of Wi-Fi 6? And the simple and the best answer that I could say and that I could sum it up in, it's simple. When Netgear does. Netgear has not come out with a Wi-Fi 6 access point for businesses yet because we're watching the market. And if you guys are watching the market, that's great. You want to watch it as much as you can. About 3 months ago, I looked up when I started talking about Wi-Fi 6 with an engineer, we looked up Wi-Fi 6 cards. We went to Amazon and looked it up, and there was none. There was none on there. We couldn't see. And I said, oh, there were Ethernet RJ45 10 gig, cards, but not Wi-Fi. I just searched the other day, and boom, they're on there now. So it's like, oh, okay. So, I gotta make sure I'm watching the market, and Netgear is for sure, as a whole, thank goodness, is watching the market, and we're watching and waiting for when is that optimum time to jump on that wave and say, now's the time to start getting the Wi-Fi 6. And there may be other reasons why. If you're a customer, if you have a budget, or your end user has a budget where they say, hey, if I don't do this now, it's not going to happen for another 5 years. Then do it. Go for it. Absolutely. Upgrade to that Wi-Fi 6, and you may pay a little bit higher price, but it's going to be worth it in the long run. But if you can spare, if you're saying, hey, we have a budget, but we don't have to spend it right this second, we just want to make sure we're getting the best bang for our buck, wait until when Netgear releases their wireless Wi-Fi 6 access points, because then that's the transition. Now, when will that be? I'm sure that question, if not, has already been in the chat, but when will that be? I don't know. That's above my pay grade. They don't share that information with a lowly salesman like myself. But I can been assured that it will be out sometime this year, whether that's Q3 or Q4. I don't know. Maybe even the beginning of next year, but it is coming. Netgear's just timing that wave. We don't, unfortunately, have a crystal ball. If I had a crystal ball, I wouldn't be in this job. I can tell you that much. But So anyway, that's the things to look out for. That's going to be my presentation on the Wi-Fi 6 and when to ride this wireless wave and get upgraded to that Wi-Fi 6. I will turn the time over now to Julia to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Thank you, Jordan, very much for that wonderful presentation. And it looks like I do have some questions here for you. Let's get started with the first one. How many devices can each controller manage?
Yeah, so if we're talking about devices as in access points, we have three different controllers. They range from 50, I think it's like 10, all the way up to 200. If we're talking about, which I think that's what we're talking about, devices as in access points. I don't think we're talking about devices as in cell phones and how many users, because the controller obviously does not necessarily handle that portion. It's the access points that handle the amount of devices, and those devices, are going to be how many those access points can handle. If that's more steering of the question, in the ballpark of 100 is what we have it at.
Thank you very much for that. Next question here for you. Regarding the physical controller, is it built into the router or the switch, or is it its own device?
The controller is its own separate device that will plug into. A switch will generally plug in from the controller to the access point. So from the router and firewall to a controller, from the controller to a switch, to the switch to the access points is generally how it's set up.
Thank you, Jordan. Can you tell us about the controller license? Is there a fee involved?
There is. So on the controller side of things, there is a one-time licensing fee. That fee can range just depending on how many licenses you need. So I won't get into the pricing of things. If you are interested in getting quotes, Microcom would be more than happy to. We can make sure you get some strong pricing. But there is a one-time fee for the lifetime. So just know that it's not a recurring cost or every few years. It is a one-time fee. You purchase a license and then you have it set. You just need to make sure you buy the appropriate amount of licenses for the amount of access points that you need. And so, of course, we sell the licenses. Pricing can range as well, depending on how many licenses. We sell them in packs of 10 or 50 or single packs, and which obviously affect the price.
Thank you very much for that. So this next question here, you may have touched on it. It says, do I need a license for each network, or can one license manage multiple locations?
You will need multiple licenses. One license is only good for one access point. So of course, those separate networks and separate business locations will have separate access points. So you'll need separate.
Thank you for that, Jordan. A couple more questions here for you. Regarding the tri-band third network patent, what do you call this technology that Netgear has developed, and does it work on all of your APs?
So that's a great question. So we call it the tri-band. So whenever you hear something that has a tri-band name in it, that means it has that third network. To answer the question of do all our access points, no, of course not. We have some dual bands that don't recognize that third band. So that's a fantastic question to ask, because I often get asked, hey, can I just throw this in and can I have this mixed environment of dual bands and tri-bands and still get that third backbone? And the answer to that is no. Of course, you have to. If you want to have that wireless backhaul, all the devices have to have, all the other access points have to have that third network to have that wireless backbone.
Thank you, Jordan. Next question here for you. Will the AirBridge serve as an AP as well as, or does it need to be connected to an AP since it's only a bridge PTP?
So it does need to be connected to a switch. It doesn't need to necessarily be connected to an access point. But it can act, yes, as an access point, as long as you're looking to have the coverage in a 60-degree cone. It does have it's really interesting. when they created this, because of the environment, of course, you can't run PoE to it, because oftentimes these may be over 300 feet. And so there are these hurdles that we had to come across. So what actually happens is you need to connect this wireless bridge to the switch through a wire, through, at least for the first one. And then it actually has a PoE injector. So you'll find a wall outlet, and this will go into a PoE injector. And from that PoE injector, it'll plug into the wireless air bridge. And then it'll shoot that signal across, and then on the other end, you can have it doing the same. You can have it going from the receiving side. You can have it that has to be powered via the PoE wall outlet as well, and then have that maybe running into a small little 8-port switch, and then you have another network that you can maybe throw in an access point in there if you wanted to, and have coverage in another side of a building that's more than 300 feet or however far away.
Thank you so much, Jordan. Couple more questions here for you. Are your controllers restricted to Netgear APs as well?
So our controllers are not. We're not necessarily proprietary to ourselves, in like some other networking companies might be. But know that we don't go out and say, hey, yeah, use it with anybody's. We haven't certified and tested and be like, this will certify to work with just about anybody. So use that with some caution. Know that it will for sure work with Netgear. If you want to use it with anybody else, we don't have any limiting factors, but that's not to say that any of the other access points that you're going to use doesn't. There are, so if you use a company that has limitations on where they can use and will only work with certain things, then it won't work. It's kind of like, I have these Samsung earbuds, the new ones that kind of came out, and they can work with Apple. And however, Apple may choose to say, hey, we're not going to recognize you. And yeah, I don't know if that's the case. I'm sure it's not. But Apple could say, hey, our AirPods we only want our phones and devices to work with our AirPods and not with anybody else's, not with Samsung's Bluetooth earbuds. So take that and use that as an example to compare. We open ourselves up to anybody else. We're a EEE standard. We follow EEE, and it should work. But if there's other companies that may follow EEE but also have some further restrictions, we can't control that.
Thank you so much for that, Jordan. Last question here for you. If we here at Microcom need to reach out for technical support, what is the best way to reach you guys?
Yeah, so that's one of the awesome things that going through Microcom, since Microcom is a partner with Netgear, and not only are they a partner, but they're a platinum partner. So that means they are the highest partner level that Netgear has to offer. Now, so with that, if you ever need technical support, any product that you buy from them comes with, aside from the hardware warranty, obviously, but comes with a 90-day free technical support. You have the option to buy more tech support for a 1, 3, or 5 year if you want through them. If you want to handle things in-house and take care of it, you can buy it through them and they give you a really good deal on it. Or two, if they have the ability, of Microcom can as well, if their technical people are trying to help and they may not be able to help, they can easily involve Netgear and Netgear support, and we can assist and have everybody on the call, making sure we achieve and fix whatever issue possibly needs to be fixed.
Thank you, Jordan, for answering all of those questions for us this morning. And thank you to everyone for attending today's webinar. And if anyone has any further questions, please feel free to contact your sales rep or email us at sales@microcomtech.com. And if you wish to view any of the products mentioned or shown here today, please visit us at www.microcom.us. And remember, this webinar presentation has been recorded and will be uploaded to our Microcom YouTube channel so you can view it again. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Have a wonderful day, and until next time, bye-bye now.